This presentation will explore recent practice-based design research using 3D laser scanning to create multidisciplinary works that operate across architecture, installation and media arts. Clear+Park used 3D scanning to capture spaces and heritage sites to create representations and spatial propositions that engage with and respond to specific site narratives. The types of project they create sit between physical representations of an actual site and the virtual representations of a digital model, and it is this in-betweenness that makes their work so amenable to a discourse around theories of affect. Three-dimensional laser or LiDAR scanning uses a rotating laser beam and digital imaging to map spaces with great accuracy, creating highly evocative point cloud models that can be used to produce survey information, converted into editable mesh models, or used to generate high-definition digital images and animations. Currently, the main uses for laser scanning are to develop quantitative models of spaces for documentation purposes, particularly in the construction and heritage industries. In their recent projects, Clear+Park scans sites, spaces and artifacts, then manipulate the point cloud data, frequently combining it with data from other scans to create spatial models that exist between the virtual and the actual. Importantly, the point cloud data is used with other forms of practice, particularly animation, installation and extended reality, to create films, immersive installations, design projects, virtual landscapes and drawings that represent innovative design research in the form of complex spatial propositions. The use of animation, post-production processes and sound facilitates the articulation of narratives addressing historical, cultural and social issues. Appropriating the terminology used to describe cubism, Clear+Park proposed to differentiate between the analytic and synthetic uses of this technology, those that seek to measure and quantify space, and those that try to use it to develop new spatial models and narratives. The point cloud data generated by the scanning process maintains a coherent photographic veracity and yet appears incorporeal, being a photograph mapped onto a matrix of 3D data points. The point cloud functions in an uncanny way, sitting between a photograph of the actual space and a 3D digital model that allows the untrammeled movement within the virtual, creating an in-betweenness that can induce an effective response, in-betweenness being a characteristic identified by many theories of affect. Stephen Shaviro states that affect is central to the experience of the moving image, and that films and music videos, like other media works, are machines for generating affect. He argues that much of the impact of the moving image, especially recent CGI-driven work, takes place outside of our direct ability to cognitively process the material in real time. Therefore, we feel the work before we understand it. It is the contention here that the immersive installations created by Clear+Park operate on the basis that the audience feels an affective response to the space, largely based on the aesthetic qualities of the point cloud imagery and the stylistic and narrative tropes that are used in their work. Synthetic Spaces was a project first exhibited in 2019 that sought to explore three well-known sites in the town of Huddersfield, located in the north of England, creating an immersive installation in the Queensgate Market Gallery. The three chosen sites were Huddersfield Railway Station, with its Grade 1 listed neoclassical facade, the Victoria Tower, a prominent Grade 2 listed 19th century folly overlooking the town, which has become a totemic landmark. The third site was the Grade 2 listed Queensgate Market in the town centre. From the scans of these buildings, 3 composite films were constructed and projected onto adjacent walls of the gallery. A soundtrack was constructed using site-specific recordings and fragments of dialogue appropriated from a documentary about Huddersfield, featuring the Hollywood actor James Mason, who was born in the town. The nature of the installation and the use of the layered footage attempts to reorder perceptions of those spaces in relation to wider changes that the town is experiencing. Of the 3 buildings, the Queensgate Market is perhaps the least prestigious, but in many ways architecturally the most interested. Completed in 1970 by the architect Seymour Harris and engineers Leonard and Partners, one of the most remarkable features of the building are the 21 asymmetric hyperbolic paraboloid or HYPAR columns that create inverted umbrellas forming the roof canopy. The HYPAR columns are of varying heights with glazed infill sections covering the gaps between the differential heights. These structures are not the only distinctive feature of the building. At the eastern end of the market complex is a highly distinctive facade that overlooks Huddersfield's Ring Road and is adorned with 9 monumental ceramic sculptures by artist Fritz Steller, who also contributed an elongated metal frieze sculpture that is placed at high level on the northern wall of the market hall. The highly original nature of this building cannot be overemphasized. It is certainly unique within the UK, and the author is unaware of any similar structural system anywhere in the world. An important goal of this project is to draw attention to this truly remarkable building, especially as it is about to undergo major refurbishment. Another surprising feature of Huddersfield is that it is home to the Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, HCMF, one of the UK's leading contemporary festivals, with an international reputation that attracts performers from all over the world. One such internationally renowned composer who appeared at HCMF on 3 separate occasions was Ioannis Xenakis. As well as being a highly regarded composer, Xenakis was also a trained engineer and worked on several important architectural projects as an assistant to the Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier. Xenakis was instrumental in some of Le Corbusier's most significant works, including the monastery at La Tourette and the Philips Pavilion for the 1958 World's Fair in Brussels, where he managed to obtain equal credit for the pavilion's design. Of particular importance to Clear+Park was Xenakis' polytopes, which sat between performance, happening and site-specific installation, and involved inhabiting spaces with temporary structures augmented with lighting and audio. It was less that the space was the site of a performance, but the space itself was performed. While each polytope was unique and usually named for its location, there were several common threads across the installations, particularly the use of geometries derived from hyperbolic paraboloids. The geometric properties of the Queensgate's HYPAR columns show similarities to the generative forms developed by Xenakis in both the creation of his architecture, his music, and the polytopes. There is no suggestion that Xenakis played any role in the conception and design of the Queensgate Market, or that the architects were aware of Xenakis' music or notational systems, although it is likely that they would have been aware of his collaborations with Le Corbusier. In the creation of synthetic space, Clear+Park were intrigued to wonder what Xenakis would have thought coming across such a radical structure that bore so many similarities to his own approach to form generation in this most unlikely of places. Though they were unable to find any reference to the market in Xenakis' text, the sheer possibility of such an encounter was a great inspiration in developing the next phase of the project, Hyperreal Huddersfield. Symmetry is often seen in architecture as virtuous, while asymmetry is frivolous and even immoral, especially when applied to structure. The Queensgate's HYPAR columns are symmetrical in one axis, unlike standard forms of paraboloids where symmetry is consistent along 2 axes. The most noticeable form of asymmetry is in the heads of the columns, as the geometric centre is moved along the long axis, creating unequal cantilevers. This geometric play gives them an uncanny sense of both solidity, they are massive concrete forms, and instability, as they look like they should fall over. The varying heights of the columns also adds to the sense of unease, making the column heads appear different sizes and distorting the perspectival coherence of the space. Given that the space, when in use, was filled with everyday market stalls, the almost willful effect of developing a very functional space using highly unfunctional means could be easily overlooked. However, within the digital model, it becomes unavoidable. As part of the synthetic space exhibition, a series of animation tracking sequences were created along the axis of the building. These were mirrored around their central axis and displayed on two TV screens mounted in a corner with the movements of one reversed, so that the two sequences seemingly merged into one another. The effect was quite disconcerting, and the mirroring gave a powerful and uncanny effect to the relatively ordinary sequence, and created the illusion that the structural shells of the market formed both ground-level pediments as well as the structural canopies at high level, a trope that was to be one of the starting points of the Hyperreal Huddersfield project. For the Hyperreal Huddersfield project, the point cloud model of the market was edited to create new digital model with two layers of the hyper structures mirrored to form a two-story virtual space that also included scans of the monumental ceramic sculptures alongside additional geometries taken from the work of Xenakis' polytopes in the form of conic sections that pierced the plane dividing the two levels. Within the interior, copies of the ceramic reliefs act like virtual codices, and while the space in its virtual form is dimensionless, the ceramic panels also suggest the potential scale of the new space. To reinforce the relationship between the market forms and the syntax of Xenakis' polytopes, the soundscape for the installation featured heavily manipulated elements of an electronic tape composition by Xenakis Hibiki Hana Ma, the polytope of Osaka. A similar sequence of actions was performed to the music that had been applied to the structural models and the animations. The soundtrack was then installed as a full-channel soundscape within the gallery alongside the projected images. The exhibition existed in two parts. Further development of the mirrored video sequences occupied one part of the gallery, while the other part of the gallery contained a series of rendered scenes of the new space and a VR headset to explore the hybridized model, enabling visitors to engage with its immersive geometries. The creation of the hyperreal space was facilitated by the use of games engine software Unreal 5 and allowed for the creation of an immersive environment, giving the audience the opportunity to be completely inside the synthetic world. With the synthetic spaces and the Hyperreal Huddersfield project, Clear+Park took 3D scans of a series of remarkable heritage spaces, and through the manipulation of the point cloud data, particularly the use of animation, created new hybrid spaces that allow the potential for a heightened effective engagement with narrative place-based research. The technology of scanning is rapidly changing. Low-resolution scanning is available on many personal devices, and it may well be that point cloud imagery becomes as much part of the everyday life as the photograph is now. But we are still in a phase where high-resolution scanning is an expensive and highly technical activity, so the potential of creating spatial representations that work so directly at the level of effective experience is still relatively specialized activity.